everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Fabric SQL Database is here. But how do we monitor the performance? I am a former DBA, but I'm always thinking like one. I want to know, how are things running? How do I find out how things are running? How many times is the query executed? What are my wait stats? What does the query text look like? What does the execution plan look like? Where do I find all of these things? Fear not. As different as the Fabric interface may seem, this is still Azure SQL Database underneath the covers, and we've got years of performance tuning it. Okay, so the first place we're going to go is the performance dashboard that is included as a part of your Fabric SQL Database. The performance dashboard in Fabric SQL Database displays the performance status of the database and offers varying metrics. We can use this to be able to identify performance bottlenecks and find solutions to performance issues. What does it look like? We're going to start out in Microsoft Fabric, and we're in our Fabric workspace. I filtered this on my databases. I'm going to go in a test database. I've got a lot of data in here. You can see I've got a lot of tables under my DBO schema. I've got a lot of stored procs, but you can also see I've got the majority of the AdventureWorks database in here. And I've done a lot of work on this. Now, let's say you didn't have a workload. You wanted to create something to test really quickly. Pretty simple. We're just going to go up. We're going to click new query. I'm going to put something simple, select star from DBO gloves. I've only got 2 records in the table. Boom, you've got results. It would automatically be in there. Now we want to go to the performance dashboard. When we click on this, we're going to get a quick flyout. Very, very cool stuff that allows us to see some of these settings without diving in. CPU consumption, user connections, requests per seconds, block queries, allocated size, automatic indexing. But we do want to go into the dashboard because we want to see all the goodness, but you can get that really, really quickly, which is cool. We click on this, you're going to get distracted by the graph. Don't get distracted by the graph. We're going to get to that. First, I want you to look at the query text that we have available. This is pretty awesome. I've got my execution count for the amount of queries and the number of times so I can figure out my top queries that are being utilized. I could look at the total CPU because remember that's going to be compute for capacity. I could also look at object name if I'm using stored procs to figure out maybe what I want to tune. Now there was a stored procedure I saw in there. It's got a little bit more CPU utilization than any other stored procedure in there. And I really want to take a closer look at it. So how would we do that? Well, I come back over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the query ID. The query ID is going to let us dive in here a little bit more. When we look at this page, we can see that we've got the execution history based off the time range that we've got in the previous window. And we could even compare performance between different executions. We could open this query up in Visual Studio and also in Management Studio. Now, the thing that I feel is missing here is we've got an object. What I would want to do is I would actually want to be able to open up that object, that stored procedure, and get to it. So while I think this screen is cool, it's got a lot of potential. Keep in mind the release at which that we get new Fabric capabilities. I would imagine this is going to become more and more useful over time. Don't forget ideas.microsoft.fabric.com or ideas.fabric.microsoft, one of the two. You get the point. All right, so let's go back to the performance dashboard. Here's my favorite thing that we've got. Hover over one of the little points where we've got view the data on details. What? That's a little Fabric magic right there. We just clicked into this, into the exact timeline. I can see what my workload was. I could see the object name, the CPU time, the execution count. That was so great. Let's do it one more time. I'm going to pick another thing on this timeline. View the data from time. Boom! Fabric magic. Oh my God, this is so great. How cool is this that we can drill into these moments? Let's do it one more time because 2 wasn't enough. We got to go for 3, right? Rule of 3. Boom. View that data. Little more Fabric magic. Oh, now this is the good stuff. This is my favorite thing about this graph, being able to very quickly drill down into a workload and find the number of queries, find the executions, find the statements that we're running. This to me is really, really big. And this is my favorite thing about the performance dashboard. But what I want to do is now I want to create a workload. So I'm going to come over into SSMS. I'm going to show you something really cool because I want to do a workload generator. I'm going to turn off and I'm going to get rid of the results as it comes in grid. So that way I can just fire off these different statements. You can see I'm using Go as a batch iterator. Each of these stored procs is going to run 5,000 times. The reason I've got that code in front of it as a randomizer function is because these stored procs can get varying results. So that way I want to be able to have that variance within the plan cache. I want to have some different data skew. And when we come back over to Fabric, let's go ahead and click on view the code, because what I want you to see is I want you to see how this works real time. So you can see these are the stored procedures that we're currently running. I click refresh and you can see that I'm able to get these results. We sort it by object name because I'm running stored procedures, and you can see the updates happening every time I click refresh. That's because we're pulling this dashboard directly from DMV. So this is going to be a wonderful view into what is actually occurring on your database to be able to show you those real-time numbers. So no big delay in getting this. This dashboard is always going to be up to date because it's looking at our instance. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. The graph is cool. That is pretty cool, right? That point in time, that capability to see execution count, CPU utilization. But what about everything else? We've still got wait stats that are occurring. We've still got other things. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. When we talk about monitoring, we have not just the tools that are there in Fabric SQL. This is still Azure SQL Database. We can use SSMS. So let's go ahead and look at one of the biggest and best tools we have in SSMS, the Query Data Store. Over in SSMS, we're going to extend the tree by the Query Store, and we're going to go to Query Wait Stats. You can click on any of the built-in reports we have for Query Store, but we're going to start here. Now you can see we've got memory, preemptive, buffer IO, CPU, unknown, network IO. These are all wait stats that we've actually had going on in our database. I click on memory, and you can see I've got my query IDs right here, which correspond to the performance dashboard. In here, I can see the query text. I can see the execution plan. There's all kinds of wonderful information. If you're looking for some good stuff, Erin Stellato had a lot of great blogs and also videos over on Pluralsight. That's right. She wasn't always just a PM at SQL. She was rocking the community pretty hardcore, and she is brilliant. So you want to check that content out, because the query store is something that you really need to know. But let's not just stop at the query store, right? We've got DMVs in here. So let's go with the community script. I'm going to start with one of my favorite ones from one of my good buddies, Jason Strate, SP Index Analysis. This is an oldie, but still a goodie. So I'm over in the GitHub repository for Jason, and there's SP Index Analysis for Azure SQL Database. Yeah, it hasn't been updated in a decade, but I'm just going to go to raw, get this, and I'm going to go create a new query window. I'm going to drop it right into SSMS, and I'm going to run it, and it's just going to work because this is Azure SQL Database. Now, these are all DMVs for this community script. Let's go ahead and run it. And boom, it's right there. Now, this script has a ton of great information about indexes, but the thing to realize is this is still SQL Server. We have access to all of the DMVs right here. And this is wonderful stuff, especially when it comes to how we're going to manage this. This is not a far cry from anything that you've dealt with before. Well, you know where we want to keep this going? Down in the comments. Sound off. What do you want to see? I'll give you a few of mine. I would love to see some integration with Database Watcher. A lot of really cool things and dashboards and capabilities in Database Watcher, but I'd also love to see a mechanism for extended events to be able to have that GUI, simple to use interface in Microsoft Fabric like we have with the performance dashboard. All right, thank you so much for joining us on Tales from the Field. As always, be good to one another. Take care, everybody.
Today's gonna be
Bye.
a good day. Set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath.